The global escape game has arrived. The clown hiding in a dark corner holding a fire axe, the terrifying grin of the chainsaw killer in the next room, and the pawn the elusive masked killer Jason, the swarming wave of zombies, and what players need to do is to do everything in these dangerous dungeons to escape. After crossing over, Li Yan awakened the survival simulator, which could simulate his own process in the escape dungeon. You were killed by the clown hiding in the corner with an axe. The simulation is over, you work hard to exercise and gain talent. Infinite power. You punched the clown hiding in the corner and swung him to death. And holding his fire axe, he ran to the next door and beat the chainsaw killer fiercely. The chainsaw killer has become your little horse, 1 minute on stage, 10 years of hard work off stage after countless simulations. Li Yan discovered that the ones who really need to escape should be these copies of NPC keywords of the novel. Escape game. I awakened to the survival simulator with no pop-ups, escape game. I awakened to the survival simulator. TXT complete collection download, escape game. I awakened to the survival simulator latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Survival Simulator, new book setting sail for collection and reading. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1 Survival Simulator, new book setting sail for collection and reading, at that time. The teeth of that zombie are only 0.01 centimeters away from my throat. Looking at the other person's green pupils due to bacterial infection. I regret it a bit. Why didn't I observe it again before rushing out? Your hands are becoming sour and trembling. You can clearly feel that the strength of the zombie is gradually increasing. Your power has been exhausted. You have been attacked by zombies. Germs spread from wounds and spread freely within your body, turning you into a zombie. You're dead, Li Yan. Death. Dungeon, crazy research room. Simulated survival failure. Reward talent. Danger prediction, description. You can foresee the arrival of danger. Simulation completed, cool down for 30 minutes before continuing. Looking at the capital characters in the line of sight. Li Yan, who withdrew from the simulation, couldn't help but twitch his lips. Who is not good at learning from this simulator, but it is necessary to learn from a certain disdainful wolf. Let out a sigh. His attention was focused on the crimson countdown in the upper left corner of his gaze. Escape game. First internal test, copy. Crazy research room, number of people. 4-inch, game start countdown. 23 hours. Tick by tick. The shrinking numbers were like the sickle of death, getting closer and closer to my throat, pressing me hard to catch my breath. This is just my first day wearing more and more. Why did I encounter this kind of thing? Yes. Li Yan is a traveler who came from a blue planet to this unfamiliar federal world. He had just figured out the operating rules, and when he woke up in the morning, this message appeared in his sight. Simply put, it is a game called Escape Game where the main god space has opened up the inner side, with a total of 30,000 beta testers, and Li Yan is one of the lucky ones. And the player's mission? To survive in various thrilling and terrifying dungeons. A clown hiding in a dark corner holding a fire axe, a terrifying chainsaw killer, and a biohazard threatening the world. Just thinking about it makes one shudder. As a traveler, the system is naturally standard. And his system is called a survival simulator. Before entering the replica, you can use this simulator to simulate in advance, explore rewards, obtain talents, and so on. And my first simulation was infected by a zombie hiding in a corner after surviving for 10 minutes. It's really gloomy. Remember this information to death. Take advantage of the half-hour cooling time. Li Yan came to the kitchen and made himself a bowl of instant noodles. While sucking the noodles, he began to ponder the talent he had acquired. Danger prediction. Similar to Spider-Man's spider sensing. Think and wait. The cooling time will pass quickly. He proceeded with the second simulation. At midnight, you were taken away by the escape game, copy name. Crazy research room, there are a total of 4 players in the dungeon. All you need to do is escape from the research room before the monsters come out. You are located on the 3rd floor of the research base, and if you want to escape, you must first go to the 1st floor of the research base, open the gate of the base, and leave this place. Although time is tight, you know there are a lot of zombies outside and you must be cautious. You look around the research room and discover many things that can be used as weapons. You choose crowbar, surgical knife, wooden stick. You picked up the crowbar, carefully explored the surroundings, and walked out of the door. At this moment, the zombie hiding behind the door rushed out, and you reacted very quickly. With one stick, you threw it to the ground. Currently, infected individuals have not yet been completely zombied, and their combat effectiveness is even weaker than that of ordinary humans. You led a few teammates out of the laboratory and arrived at a narrow passage. Through the glass, you observe the restless experimental zombies, but unexpectedly find a little girl who appears particularly calm and indistinguishable from ordinary people. Time is tight, you ignored her and continued walking towards the base gate. During this process, your teammate accidentally broke his weapon while attacking the zombie with a wooden stick. He was infected by the attack and turned into a zombie. You planned to kill him, but encountered opposition from your teammates. You had an argument and in the end, they decided to walk towards the gate of the base, while you walked towards the security room. After some effort, you killed all the zombies in the security room and obtained items. Helmets, bulletproof vests, M4 pistols, a few boxes of bullets. A submachine gun. After being fully armed, you walk out of the security room only to find that your infected teammates have completely zombieized and even shattered the reinforced glass of the laboratory, causing infected zombies to surge out. These zombies are the first experimental subjects, with much stronger combat power than newly infected researchers, but they also have many flaws. As long as they hold their breath and do not make any noise, they will not be noticed. Another teammate was killed, and now only one girl from the police academy is still alive. Her performance is much better than that of ordinary people. After a while, you held your breath and poked your head out. The experimental zombies were still wandering in front of the door. Surprisingly, the little girl also walked out of the laboratory, crying loudly, making people want to protect her. The police academy girl who had been hiding couldn't help but poke her head out, and at this moment the little girl suddenly laughed. Her mouth split open, and twisted, disgusting tentacles stretched out from inside, tightly wrapping around the neck of the police academy girl. All your teammates have died. You didn't dare to act recklessly as you watched the little girl gnaw on her teammate's corpse. Dida. Dida. The sound of dribbling saliva came from behind you. Looking back. A thin and small zombie. I don't know when it crawled onto your head. You felt the danger and dodged the fatal blow, immediately shooting and strafing, but your marksmanship was too poor. Not only did you not kill the zombies, but you also attracted infected people wandering outside the door. Li Yan. Death. Survival time. 2 hours, cause of death, bitten to death by zombies, acquire talent. Breath holding expert. Description. Your holding time has been enhanced. Dead again. Looking at the capital stroke characters, Li Yan's brow furrowed. Under his talent for danger perception, he survived for a much longer time than he had expected, but in the end, he died due to his teammates and poor marksmanship. But to put it another way, what's going on with that little girl? Based on the description, she has many differences from ordinary experimental subjects, and it feels a bit like an evolutionary version. Speaking of which, this time, another talent was given: can make oneself hold their breath longer. Although it may not seem very impressive, it can still be considered a good talent in this environment. The time has arrived at 9 o'clock. Li Yan turned on the timer. Take a deep breath, hold it in, and the timer starts. Dida 1 minute has passed. Li Yan's feeling is very good. Dida 3 minutes will pass. His face flushed slightly. Tick by tick. 5 minutes have passed. Li Yan let out a sudden breath. He can hold his breath for about 5 minutes now, while for a normal person, it's only about 1 minute, 2 or 30 seconds maybe in the future. with a powerful talent, I can directly challenge the world record. Retract your imagination. My most important goal now is to survive in this escape game. Through previous experiments, Li Yan has learned that various aspects of reality can affect the overall content of the simulation. The repeated simulation is meaningless. Perhaps one can use some things to improve their own level and achieve a different effect. During this period he can do many things. The most basic thing is practice shooting. As a traveler, this kind of thing was absolutely impossible in the previous life, but it is extremely common in this world. Open the map and search for the word shooting. 3 or 4 locations appeared. Li Yan chose a place closest to him and walked out of the room. Dear new readers, the first copy may not have been written very well. You can take a look at it later. Please give me a chance. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Pistol Specialization Talent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Pistol Specialization Talent Linzhou. Double Eagle Shooting Practice Basement. Looking at the colorful sign, Li Yan took a deep breath and walked in. I have been in this world for a while, but I have never tried shooting with a gun. Enter the basement. Many people are wearing earmuffs at this time, holding guns and starting target practice. Some practice alone, while others hire coaches. The owner of this restaurant is a young lady. Her father was once a soldier, and under the guidance of his family background, he was very knowledgeable and proficient in firearms and other things. Hello, I'm here to practice shooting. Li Yan spoke up. The girl glanced at him and tapped on the reinforced glass carrying the firearm, saying, "What type?" For beginners, it is recommended to use a handgun, which is the cheapest and best to get started with. That's a pistol, by the way, I need a coach, the best. Li Yan did not hesitate. Although hiring a coach may require spending more money, from the moment this survival game was born, the significance of money was no longer significant. There should be various things with supernatural powers inside. The first time the player quota was only 30,000 people, not to mention selling in-game items, even selling in-game news, there will be countless people flocking to it. So, there is no need to save the necessary expenses at all. The girl raised her eyebrows and said, I am the coach here. However, I am very expensive. Have you considered it carefully? Li Yan nodded and said, as long as you have real skills, let's start straight. A smile appeared on the girl's cheek. My name is Lin Xia, you can call me Instructor Lin. Li Yan nodded and said, Li Yan. After a conversation, Lin Xia took him directly to the best shooting room. She spoke up and said, first, try firing a few shots and let me see your level. Aim at the target. Although Li Yan had never fired a gun, he also knew about the 3 points and 1 line, as well as some basic gun-holding movements, with 5 bangs. However, only 1 bullet barely landed on the target. Lin Xia frowned and said, the movements are very awkward, it seems like it's really the first time. Top flat, center straight, 3 points and 1 line, focus your gaze, and control your breathing. She grabbed her hand, squinted her eyes, exhaled, and then pulled the trigger. Bang! 1 bullet. Accurately hit the bullseye. The most important way to improve gun skills is to practice, keep practicing, to master the feelings I mentioned, firmly remember them, and form muscle memory. Instructor Lin continued, as I said, try shooting again and try a few more times. Time flows slowly. The index finger kept pulling down, and the recoil came from the muzzle, causing the tiger's mouth to tingle. Half an hour of uninterrupted practice, combined with the guidance of Instructor Lin. Li Yan has gone from a novice who doesn't understand anything to a beginner. A set of bullets can hit the target with 7 or 8 bullets, and 1 or 2 can hit the center of the target. Compared to the superb skill of shooting 1 bullet at a time on television, it still takes a long time to go. At this moment, Instructor Lin spoke up and said, the hand feel is very good for a while, which may give the illusion of precise marksmanship, but not always. The hand feel can be very good. I suggest you take a break before continuing to practice. I won't charge you during this period. By the way, our club organizes spontaneous shooting competitions every weekend. You can go there and watch. Sometimes, watching others shoot can also teach you something. Li Yan nodded. Long-term shooting has already made him feel a bit numb. If this continues, it doesn't feel like there will be any improvement in his shooting skills. Thinking about it, taking advantage of this break, he walked out of the separate shooting practice room. As soon as they left, gunshots pierced into their eardrums. During the training period just now, this group of club members had gathered together at some point to shoot targets. Li Yan just gathered over a girl who appeared to be in her 20s, noticed him and said, "Mianshou, this is your first time here?" Li Yan nodded. For beginners, it's important to practice and watch more. She smiled, feeling very familiar. As she spoke, it was her turn to shoot the next target. Lift the earphone proficiently, hold the gun, aim at the target, and pull the trigger. Bang bang bang. 3 shots, all hit the target, 2 hit hearts, accuracy is considered good. Applause and cheers also appeared next to him. The girl raised her eyebrows, seemingly satisfied with her performance, and handed the gun over. Try it out. I can teach you, it's free of charge. Li Yan shook his head with a smile and said, "If you have poor accuracy, you won't come up and show off." After watching a shooting competition for a while, he remembered something more important and came to the restroom. I don't know. Will the simulation process change after practicing? After thinking about it, Li Yan started the simulation. In the middle of the night, you were pulled away by the escape game, and the name of the dungeon game is, you skillfully picked up the crowbar and, in the astonished eyes of your teammates, gave the infected person in the corner a head blow. Extremely skilled operation. Coupled with your calm mindset, it has unconsciously shifted the dominant position among players to you. With the previous experience, you quickly crossed the experimental tunnel and killed those infected researchers. This time, no one was infected. You arrived at the security room, dealt with those security guards, and started picking up equipment. You have a handgun, a fire axe, and a few boxes of bullets. After the girls in the police academy put on their gear, their temperament became even more fierce. The infected researchers, like weak white mice, fell to the ground at the sound of gunfire. Your marksmanship proficiency is starting to improve, no accidents occurred. After cleaning up the zombies of the researchers, you arrived at the second floor of the research base, where the experimental subjects were released for unknown reasons. You signal them to hold their breath tightly, not make any sound, and proceed cautiously like this. 1 minute later, some of you couldn't hold their breath anymore. When the breath appeared, the subjects erupted into a riot. You choose. Big killing ring, hold your breath and escape, stubborn and waiting to die. After seeing a group of zombies rushing towards you, you didn't hesitate and held your breath, preparing to leave. During this time, you also escaped from the chaos with the girl from the police academy, while the other 2 teammates were killed by the zombies in the chaos. Your marksmanship proficiency is starting to improve. You 2 hid in a room, holding your breath, intending to wait until the riot ended before reaching the gate of the base. At this moment, the police academy girl suddenly pulled her sleeve open, revealing a bloody wound inside. She was infected in the chaos just now. Later, I will go out and create a commotion to lure away all these infected bodies. During this time period, you can go to the first floor and open the gate of the base to escape. After saying these words, she rushed out with a gun in her hand, and a huge commotion made. The infected bodies rush towards her. Your teammates have all died. During this period of time, with an unimaginable ability to hold your breath, you did not make any movement and arrived at the gate of the base on the first floor. You tried to open the door, but received a message prompt. Detected bacterial leakage. The base self-destruction system has been activated. You have no right to leave. Simulation ended. Li Yan was completely lost, as if he had encountered some kind of great blow. Has the self-destruct system started? No right to leave. When the spirit is approaching a critical point. Li Yan took a deep breath and adjusted his state back. It's okay. This is just a simulation, this road is not feasible, we can try other methods. Think about it. He continued to focus on the settlement panel. Li Yan. Death. Survival time. 3 hours, cause of death. Bitten to death by zombies, reward talent. Pistol specialization. Description. Your pistol skills are no less impressive than some well-trained soldiers. I'm dead again. Looking at that character, Li Yan had already finished his simulation. This time, the simulated talent seemed quite useful. A talent for pistol specialization. Is this not a coincidence? Get out of the toilet. Li Yan plans to go back to his training room and try 2 shots. And on the way back to the room, he found that Coach Lin had changed into a strong suit at some point and had also joined the team for the shooting competition. After holding the gun, her entire demeanor became cold and stern, her eyes slightly narrowed, bang bang bang. Shoot 3 shots in a row. 3 bullets hit the red heart. Extremely precise, it immediately caused a lot of praise. There are indeed 2 tricks to being a coach. After the performance ended, she put down her earphone and just saw Li Yan walking over. Lin Xia was stunned for a moment, then handed over the pistol and said, "How about giving it a try?" The eyes of the people around him only lingered on his cheeks for a moment, and attention immediately came. After watching too many flashy operations, it's really interesting to see Mengxin embarrass herself. The cuteness of Mengxin lies here, which can slightly boost her confidence. Li Yan still intended to refuse, but soon someone in the crowd started coaxing him to give it a try. He hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he took the gun. Everyone's cheeks showed a smile, as if they could already see the embarrassing scene of the opponent shooting without even hitting the target. Li Yan didn't make any other movements, with one hand and his eyes slightly narrowed, and he threw himself directly into it. This time, at the moment the pistol was fired, an indescribable change occurred. At this moment, he was like a well-trained soldier, and the originally awkward beginner movements became very professional. He sprayed his hands with guns, 3 dots and 1 line, focused on breathing, and immediately entered a state of state. Bang bang bang. Pull the trigger. Bullets flew out of the muzzle. 3 guns, all of them are bullseye. Seeing this situation, the members of the club present were all stunned for a moment, wiping their eyes. After realizing that they were not mistaken, they became even more puzzled. No, it's not. Isn't this guy a newcomer? Why is this accurate head comparable to Instructor Lin? Seeing this scene, Instructor Lin was shocked for a moment, glanced at the extremely experienced Li Yan, and then looked at the red heart on the target. Ah! She was a bit incredulous and said, "How many more shots will you try?" Li Yan nodded and looked at the 3 intact targets inside, bang 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 bang. He fired 3 shots in a row again. 3 bullets. A red heart that accurately hits 3 targets. This time, Instructor Lin was completely stunned. If the last time was lucky, that's really hard power. This aiming speed, this casual shooting posture, this accuracy after only a few years of hard work, I can't do it at all. Even if it's someone with exceptional talent, it's impossible to just go to the bathroom and realize it right away. At the same time, the girl who had previously achieved 3 shots and 2 hearts, was stunned when she saw this situation, and her cheeks quickly turned crimson. This I thought the other person was cute and new, and I seemed to have pretended before, but now I see pretending to be in front of a real big shot. Temo, damn it. Feeling the other person's gaze on her, the girl's blush grew deeper and deeper, and in the end, she disappeared directly into the crowd. And on the other side, looking at the girl who left out of shame and the few targets that were hit, Li Yan was also slightly surprised. This talent is even stronger than I imagined. Half an hour ago, I was just a novice, but now I'm no different from a professional. The internal investment has been completed, so you can rest assured to invest. Additionally, please follow up on it. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Simulation Pass, Antibody Medication. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3 Simulation Pass, Antibody Medication. So, are you still learning guns now? After pondering for a moment, Li Yan spoke up and asked, Coach Lin, do you still teach fighting or something? Lin Xia. For combat, I suggest you go to a professional boxing gym, but if it's the use of some cold weapons, I also have some knowledge. Watching the other person shift their focus. Instructor Lin immediately followed the words and continued. Just kidding. Continuing to learn guns. At this level, let alone learning, it doesn't matter if you apply for a coaching position directly here. When I heard Instructor Lin say that, the members of the club who didn't mind the excitement around couldn't help but laugh out loud. Just that batch of operations just now. Coach Lin may not be able to do it. Upon hearing this, Li Yan raised an eyebrow and said, can we learn fire axes? Lin Xia pondered for a moment and said, sure, it's great to learn. It can help you understand basic knowledge and techniques for exerting force. Li Yan nodded and said, then let's learn this. In that copy, the role of firearms is actually quite limited. Those experimental subjects are very sensitive to sound, and if the sound of firearms is so loud that it attracts them, the situation will become very bad. So, using cold weapons may be a good choice. After some discussion, Li Yan's learning changed from a pistol to a fire axe. Who? A powerful and heavy axe fell. Perhaps due to simulation, compared to ordinary people, he is able to grasp some key points of power more quickly. Take this axe down. Not to mention those ordinary zombies, even the first batch of infected individuals in the laboratory can be directly laid down. I looked at the time. It's almost noon. Li Yan remained silent for a moment and said, I want to use the restroom. Instructor Lin. Arrive at the familiar toilet seat. Li Yan let out a breath, not in a hurry to simulate, but fell into contemplation. My previous simulations were all aimed at escaping from the base gate. But when they arrived at the gate of the base, they found that the self-destruction system had already been activated and could not escape at all. But the problem has arisen. Escape game, unable to escape, isn't it just a joke to play? Think about it. Li Yan recalled the previous simulation process and suddenly came up with a question. When I was in the security room before, although all the monsters inside had been cleared, a zombie appeared from somewhere unknown. It should be impossible to emerge out of thin air. In the security room, is there anything else that nobody knows about? After some contemplation, the simulation has started again. In the middle of the night, you were pulled into an escape game. While your teammates were still in panic, you picked up a crowbar and shot the hidden zombie's head to the ground. Walking on the blood-stained ground, your breathing is very even and your expression remains unchanged. You lead your teammates to the security room and quickly put on your equipment. At the same time, you pick up your pistol and skillfully shoot at several infected individuals wandering outside the door. 3 bullets hit 3 heads, and the police academy girl is amazed by your superb marksmanship. This time, you didn't rush to the gate of the base, but carefully searched in the security room. In the end, you found a blueprint among a pile of documents and materials. Obtaining items. Construction drawing of research base. By reviewing the drawings, you have successfully discovered another path, which leads directly to the basement of the research base through the ventilation duct in the security room, where an unknown safe house is left. This is built to cope with unexpected situations, with a lot of water and food sources inside, and it is extremely sturdy. After learning the information, you led your teammates to search and finally found a ventilation duct. You went all the way from the 3rd floor of the research base to the 2nd floor, and then to the first floor, and at this moment a pitch-black palm suddenly pierced through the ventilation duct, killing one of its teammates. Through the slight gap, you observed that this was also a special experimenter. Just like a little girl, you immediately pulled out your handgun and fired, but the opponent's reaction was very rapid. After killing the person, they immediately disappeared into the zombie group. You had no choice but to quickly move your body and enter the basement. The surroundings were pitch black, and you could only slowly grope forward. At this moment, a sense of crisis suddenly surged up, and you immediately bent down. A green, sticky tongue suddenly pierced through, killing another teammate and wrapping it around the neck of a police academy girl. You immediately reacted and picked up the fire axe, chopping your tongue open with one axe. For some reason, the basement was filled with experimental subjects, and there were several special experimental subjects like the green tongue just now. The commotion of your fight alarmed these guys as they slowly approached. You signaled to hold your breath, and the police academy girl nodded. The two of you cautiously moved your steps, intending to bypass these guys and head to the safe house. 1 minute, 2 minutes, as the safety door stood in front of her, the girl from the police academy blushed as if she couldn't hold on anymore. She gestured that as she began to breathe, you quickly ran towards the safety door, while she went to attract the attention of the zombies. You pondered for a moment, and at the moment when the other person was about to breathe, you kissed them directly, like doing artificial respiration, pouring air into their lungs. Congratulations. Successfully arrived at the safe house. Under the protection of the security gate, even though the zombies were eliminated by the base's poison gas, with the supplies inside, the two of you were enough to hold on until the investigators arrived. Simulated survival successful. Simulation rating. B. System evaluation. The level of barely surviving. Reward talent. Fire axe specialization reward talent. Headshot expert reward item. Antibody potion. Looking at the large amount of rewards given for their successful survival, Li Yan was stunned for a moment. Antibody drugs. What is this thing? Click on it and a message appears on top. Antibody drugs, description. An antibody drug developed by extracting blood from a special infected person. After taking it, even if attacked by zombies, it will not be infected. It is one of the sources of escape dungeons, zombie frenzy. Attention! Your body will undergo evolution, and excessively inflated emotions will make the medication factor excited. Note: the item has been added to the warehouse. Look at the text markers that appear above. Li Yan was stunned for a moment. Antibody drugs. Does the body evolve? Open the warehouse and a potion filled with green mucus is displayed inside. This thing, but what really only exists in novels. Li Yan took a breath and tried to make his emotions appear less excited. The previous talent rewards can be considered within the category of normal people, but this thing is completely different. True supernatural powers. A strange change began to occur. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. Research Base 4th Floor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4 Research Base 4th Floor. Who, accompanied by a burst of excitement in the body. Everything began to become dull and tasteless. After taking the antibody medication, Li Yan could clearly feel that his various physical qualities had undergone extremely high changes. Take out a small folding knife and scratch your skin. The scraped skin quickly scabbed and healed in a few seconds, unlike the self-healing power that humans can possess. Furthermore, at present, it is only in the initial stage of digestion, and according to the previous notes, it can be seen that this thing can still continue to evolve. After a rough study, Li Yan recalled the comments after the simulation was completed and fell back into contemplation. Barely escaped, ordinary and unremarkable. I now have antibody serum in my body, greatly enhancing my combat effectiveness. Even if I am a special infected person, I am not afraid at all. The ultimate requirement for escaping games is, of course, to survive within the game. However, can one utilize the functionality of emulators to explore and learn about other unknown things? After some contemplation, Li Yan walked out of the toilet. Instructor Lin frowned as he looked at the young man who had just walked out of the toilet. What do you feel that your muscles have become much stronger? Is it my hallucination? She spoke up and said, have you finished using the restroom? Let's continue training. I just gave you some very practical skills. In fact, sometimes skills are more important than strength. Look at this wooden stake. Instructor Lin took a deep breath and picked up the axe, intending to retrieve all his lost face at this moment. Drink. Let out a muffled snort. Slightly squatting down, holding up an axe, and exerting force on the muscles of both arms, the axe struck the wooden stump. Immediately, it was pulled back and swung back, spending about 4 or 5 axes, before directly chopping the thick tree stump in front of it. Seeing the other person's stunned expression, a smile appeared on Instructor Lin's cheek and he said, come on, give it a try. Seeing her hand over the axe, Li Yan nodded awkwardly. In an instant, he calmed down and held a fire axe, his muscles bulging all over him. With a single axe just cut down the entire wooden stake. Lin Xia. This piece of wood may have been left standing for a long time and has become hollow due to termites gnawing. Try this one. Li Yan nodded, followed by another axe. Click. Cut both ends in one fell swoop. Lin Xia. After seeing another thick wooden stake cut off, she was once again lost in thought. Li Yan looked at her silent expression and asked, Instructor Lin, I still want to learn. Stop. Don't call me instructor anymore. I should call you instructor. Lin Xia let out a breath and said, Teacher Li, I don't have much to teach you. Let's forget about the fees. When we make friends, if there's nothing else to do, I'll go entertain the guests first. By the way, one more thing, which restroom did you just go to? Li Yan. 1 o'clock in the afternoon. After having lunch, Li Yan returned home. After the previous operation in the basement of Double Eagle shooting, he also has a new stage of understanding of his own strength. There are still 11 hours until the game starts. The simulation starts again. At midnight, you are pulled into the dungeon when your teammate is still in the confused stage. You rush out of the room and look at the corner infected person who has been brutally killed by you. After pondering for a moment, you put down the crowbar and punched it down. Achievements. Do one good deed every day. This time, you didn't bother with those teammates and went to the security room alone, holding a pistol and fire axe, to find the blueprint of the research base. The research base is divided into 5 layers, and the bacteria are leaked in the top layer of the experimental field. In other words, there are more and stronger zombies on top. You didn't feel scared because of this, and even felt a bit eager to try. You picked up the fire axe and knocked down all the infected people on the road at the corner of the 4th floor hallway. A sense of crisis suddenly surged. You immediately lowered yourself, and a special infected person like a monkey rushed over from above. Without hesitation, you took out a pistol and gave a precise headshot. Although the handling method has been fast, you have still been attacked during this process, and under the action of serum, you have not been infected. You have reached the 4th floor, and the protective glass on this floor has been broken, causing the experimental subject to wander around. You don't panic at all, holding a fire axe. First chop all the fallen experimental subjects to death, and then directly take out the grenade obtained from the security room and throw it towards the center position. Bounce. Achievements. Zombie Assassin. For some reason, when the blood of these infected individuals comes into contact with your body, the serum factors in your body feel an inexplicable excitement, especially when facing special experimenters. So, you killed all the experimental subjects on the 4th floor and found various experimental supplies in the laboratory. Obtaining item. Incomplete gene potion. Obtain item. Alarm. Obtaining items. Safe. Obtaining items. Experimental documents. By watching the files, as an edge researcher, you realize that the so-called research on anti-cancer drugs is simply an excuse. From the beginning, the base used the guise of researching anti-cancer drugs to study things that could break through human limitations, which led to the leakage of bacteria that were not successfully studied, collect the materials and continue moving towards the 5th floor. When you arrive at the gate, you find that it is already blocked and cannot be accessed. After some thought, you slowly climbed from the ventilation duct to the 5th floor, where there were a large number of experimental subjects and special experimental subjects. You set the alarm clock and set it aside, while holding your breath and walking towards the secluded environment. The sound of the alarm quickly attracted these subjects. The door of the laboratory is open, and when you come inside, you find that the box containing the pathogen has been taken away. Are there any other living people here? As you were thinking, a deep roar came into your ear, coming from the experimental door on the left. Eyes pass through transparent glass. A ultimate infected person, like a green giant, is currently pounding the glass like a madman. His suit and leather shoes are being stretched out by terrifying muscles. Although the other person has become lifeless, you still recognize who this guy is. Drop, drop. At the same time, a terrifying palpitation spread. You feel the danger and plan to leave, but in the next second bounce you were blown to pieces. Li Yan. Death. Survival time. 2 hours, cause of death. Killed by bomb explosion. Note. Items found within the simulation cannot enter the warehouse. Talent rewards. Absorbed, extraction. After killing a special infected person, you can extract the pathogens from their body to become stronger. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Entering a dungeon. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Entering a dungeon. Watching the process of one's own death. Li Yan was stunned for a moment. Killed by a bomb. The intensity suddenly surged up. Recalling the content of the simulation, Li Yan once again fell into contemplation. In the 5th layer, except for a few security personnel, there are only 2 people who can freely enter the laboratory. The scientist known as the Weirdo is also the initiator and leader of this research project. Another one is Dick, a wealthy man who provides a series of external conditions such as financial resources for eccentric people. And just now, I was locked in the laboratory, like a zombie, like a green giant. It's Dick. This guy, although locked in the laboratory, reveals a much more terrifying sense of oppression than those special infected individuals. But then he came back. How could he be locked up in the laboratory? And obviously, that bomb was also specially prepared for it. There is also a strange scientist. There is no trace of him either. There is still a lot of things that have not been sorted out. Li Yan exhaled and once again entered the simulation. At midnight, you were dragged into the game of death. After entering the game, you eliminated the hidden infected person hiding in the corner and walked alone towards the security room. You quickly cleaned up the zombies inside and found that when you touch them with your fingers, the pathogens in the other person's body will automatically absorb into your body, and your strength and physique are becoming stronger. Get your equipment. You have arrived at the 4th floor and have been chopping all the way. While expending a certain amount of stamina, your physical fitness is also increasing at a terrifying speed. Skillfully walking from the ventilation duct to the 5th floor, listening to the faint roar of anger, this time you chose to hold your ground. Time flowed slowly, and after a while, Dick broke the glass of the laboratory and rushed out. At this moment, the placed explosive was detonated, and his body was instantly blown open. Green mucus splattered around him. Despite being hit by such a terrifying explosion, it had not yet died. Instead, it fell to the ground, repairing its injuries at a slow speed. Dada. At this moment, footsteps rang out, and you focused on looking, only to see a strange scientist walking out of a certain back door and laughing at Dick's miserable situation. Strangely, despite his movements, the surrounding experimental subjects still turned a blind eye to him. It's truly the result that I spent nearly 3 years researching. Just the incomplete genetic potion can already expose you to the explosion of explosives without death. Do you want to steal my experimental results? Do you really think I don't know what you're thinking? The eccentric scientist mocked the dying Dick as if he was about to do something. And at this moment, bang, accompanied by the gunfire, came a bullet that accurately hit the opponent's head. His body fell down, and other infected bodies rushed towards him due to the sound. You set the alarm clock and threw it aside to attract fire. At the same time, an axe struck Dick's head, draining the pathogen from his body. You have become even stronger. You start searching for the bodies of strange scientists, obtaining item. Key to safe, obtaining items. Experimental log, obtaining item. Mysterious church emblem. You opened the safe with the key and found that there were actually some incomplete pathogens inside. What about the other large part? After a search, you did not find any traces of pathogens on the strange scientist. As the poison gas was about to be released, you quickly headed towards the basement. During this process, you saw the body of your teammate. Finally, you entered the safe house and successfully survived. After walking for a long time, the poisonous gas leaked out, and the strange scientist, who had already been hit by a bullet through his head, stood up eerily. Simulation successful. Congratulations on your successful survival. Rating. A. Comment. Your performance is excellent, but the only downside is that all of your teammates have already died. Reward. 10 simulated coins. Note. Simulated coins are very important items in this system. You can use them to freely purchase various things in the system mall, as well as to purchase talents. Sim coins. Looking at the introduction above, Li Yan was taken aback for a moment, and then opened the newly opened system mall interface. Inside, there is a dazzling array of talents, such as parkour specialization and combat specialization, which are priced at around 3 simulation coins. As you look up, there are even supernatural talents that can be purchased, but the price is also extremely expensive. There is no rush to spend the simulation coins in hand. Li Yan recalled this simulation experience with a somewhat solemn expression. Pathogen not found. Moreover, he shot that guy with one shot, but the other person stood up again. But then it came back. This time, I gained a large number of items in the dungeon. Although it did not appear in the warehouse, at least some insider information was also gained. Mysterious church emblem. Some dangerous villainous organization. Also, some pathogens in the safe. This thing, it's quite impressive. If Li Yan were to wander around with that thing after escaping, the main culprit that caused the zombies would probably be staged in reality. While feeling scared, Li Yan also had some palpitations. The first copy. This dangerous thing has already been generated. As the game progresses and there are more and more players, it is inevitable that there will be some strange creatures with other thoughts. If a big thing comes out, it is not impossible to cause the extinction of humanity. The time has arrived at 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There is still some time before the game officially begins. This time, his dungeon successfully survived and received an A rating, but obviously, there should be a higher level above it. The higher the rating he received, the more rewards there will be. For such a long time, Li Yan naturally won't let it go. This is a few weeks roast. He exhaled and started the simulation again. Time keeps moving on. The scorching sun outside the window gradually turned into a slanting sun, and finally, dusk fell. During these few hours, Li Yan tried simulation more than 10 times. During this period, he had already made various attempts, but no matter what, the eccentric scientist would stand up again at the last moment. This guy can't be killed at all, at least in this instance. In addition, the zombie crisis instance indicated by the pathogen. Li Yan speculated that he might encounter this scientist again in the dungeon in the future. During the simulation process, he also tried to save all his teammates and go to the safe house, but received the most reviews and reached an A+ level. Moreover, with the increasing number of passes, he received fewer rewards. I looked at the time. It's already 10 o'clock at night. For the remaining time, Li Yan was too lazy to continue infusing his energy into the simulation. Simulation is one thing, but when he did it himself, it was another thing eating, drinking tea, scrolling through videos, and taking a 2-lap walk to the community to get a little hot and dry. His current physical fitness can be considered a superhero. During the simulation process, he absorbed a lot of zombie pathogens. It may not be possible to pull out weeping willows upside down, but with a few axes, there is no problem. After a warm-up time also slowly passed until 11 o'clock. Li Yan sat in his room, concentrating until a warning sound appeared in his ear. The death game has been loaded completely. Congratulations, you have been selected as an beta player. Synthetic electronic sounds appear in one's ear. The illusory screen flickered before my eyes. Please enter your player ID. Classic naming process. Li Yan was stunned for a moment, and after pondering for a moment, he entered a string of names. Super Invincible Tyrannosaurus Rex Warrior System. Please confirm whether to use this ID. OK. The ID takes effect, and the next step is to automatically match and enter the replica, copy matching successful. Recently, I have received suggestions from readers that the simulation process may not be realistic enough and the feeling may not be satisfying enough. I will make the necessary changes. Thank you for following up. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Violent Aesthetics. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Violent Aesthetics. The name is Crazy Research Laboratory. Number of participants 4 people. Dungeon Introduction. You are a researcher responsible for researching anti-cancer drugs, working on the 3rd floor of the research room. Just as you have solved the problem and left, you find that the pathogens on the 5th floor have leaked, and security and some researchers have been infected as zombies. Before the monsters are released, you must escape. Disappearing in front of oneself with the introduction. The brain went dizzy for a moment, lost focus, and gradually solidified again. A smell of chemical gas rushed into the nose, causing discomfort. Open your eyes. The first thing that catches the eye is this pure white research room. Looking out through the glass door, the security personnel and the vast majority of researchers in the base have now turned into zombies infected with bacteria. Through previous simulations, Li Yan has already conducted some basic research on these guys. Infected individuals. Zombies infected with bacteria have the largest number and scale, and their combat effectiveness is also the weakest. The experimental subjects. Humans used for pathogen research and development. Are confined in the laboratory, with a small number and strong combat effectiveness. Their weakness is that they can only distinguish their positions by listening to sound. Special experimental subjects. Experimental subjects that undergo distortion during the experimental process, encountered multiple times in simulation, with a small number, but each occurrence can cause considerable confusion. This is Li Yan's positioning of the strength of these zombies in the research room. After careful consideration of these things, his gaze turned to the side. In this research room, there are still 3 other people standing at this moment. 1 man and 2 women. The man looks a certain age, in his 40s, with slightly white temples. Unlike ordinary middle-aged men, he has not gained weight. On the contrary, against the backdrop of his tall figure, there is a faint feeling of strong. The ID is named Li Guofu. Although the name exudes a sense of righteousness, it still exudes a sense of urgency as the leader of the Hong Kong underworld. Looking to the side again. She is a girl with a somewhat handsome appearance. Shen Lian, that is to say, the police academy girl mentioned multiple times in the simulation, performed so well. I thought she would be a rough woman, but I didn't expect her to be so delicate. The last girl is left. The ID is named Ningjing. After seeing the other person's appearance, Li Yan was taken aback for a moment. Hiss. Isn't this the girl I used to teach myself how to shoot in the club? Seems to sense some kind of gaze. Ning Qing turned her head and happened to see Li Yan. Although a one-sided encounter may not be considered a big deal, in this situation, someone who has met before also feels a bit more at ease, let alone the fact that the other person is a skilled marksmanship expert. Escape game, we seem to be caught up in some supernatural force. After some immersion, Shen Lian spoke up first. She asked beside her, "Did you hear a series of electronic sounds such as internal tests this morning?" Jingjing nodded and said, "I thought it was a hallucination, but I didn't pay much attention." On the occasion of orthogonal discussions, a blood-red countdown appeared in sight. Countdown. 2 hours and 50.9 minutes, the large, bright red screen flickered in the line of sight. It means they don't have much time left, and if they stay still, it will be death. Li Guofu immediately reacted and said, "We need to leave quickly." He looked at a few people on the stage, except for the handsome young man, who seemed unreliable. After hesitating for a few seconds, Li Guofu continued, "I am a black fist fighter and have been a bodyguard for a few years. Although this situation has not occurred before, I have learned emergency situations and so on. You can follow my command." At this critical moment, having a trustworthy person as the commander is crucial, especially when teamwork is required. If it weren't for Li Yan's simulator, maybe I really believe this old pussy with a stern and upright expression on his face. The bodyguard won't say anything for now. The performance of this old guy in the simulator is really indescribable. Li Yan glanced at him and said, "According to the dungeon prompt, there should be a large number of infected zombies outside. It is impossible to leave without engaging in battle. I think we should first collect some self-defense weapons, and the most appropriate thing is to go to the security room." Li Guofu frowned as if he wanted to break and tug again, but he saw the young man, after saying these words, lean over and pick up a pry bar on the ground. Without saying a word, he kicked the door open. The sound of the crowbar waving echoed in the air. The infected person hiding in the corner was thrown to the ground with a stick, and green blood splattered in a smooth arc. The smooth operation left everyone present stunned. After killing the zombie, there was no change in Li Yan's pupils, as if he had done something insignificant. "Time is running out, why are you still waiting?" "For zombies." At the beginning of the simulation process, he may need to be very careful, even if he has enough ability to kill these guys, but the real difficulty of this dungeon is that the attacks of these zombies, once in contact with blood, can quickly infect people with the bacteria in their bodies. But after having antibody serum, this is no longer a problem. In the subsequent simulation process, in order to reach the S.level simulation evaluation, he even slaughtered all the zombies around him once. Although Ning Ning often practiced shooting at the Twin Eagles Club, this experience did not bring any other changes to her, she just timidly followed behind. Shen Lian received professional training in the police academy, so she performed much better. Her gaze remained fixed on Li Yan. Although the appearance is not surprising, but in reality, the lake in my heart has already stirred up waves. There are no other reasons. The other party's performance is really too superior and proficient. Skilled as if he had been beaten 1,000 times, facing zombies and ordinary people facing mice and cockroaches, he casually killed them without any interest. The slightly bulging muscles when waving the cane, the seasoned feeling of lifting hands to wipe when blood splashes on the cheeks, and the calm gaze, just like the respected senior in the police academy, are convincing. Full of the beauty of violent aesthetics. What are you still waiting for? The security room is here, focus more. The other person's voice came through. Shen Lian immediately regained consciousness and looked at the slightly puzzled gaze of the other person, pursed her lips and said, "Okay. I thought the journey to the security room would be very difficult. In fact, without this guy around, the journey would indeed become very difficult. Not to mention the zombies in the dark, even the ones on the surface are very difficult to deal with. But along the way, whether on the bright or dark side, the zombies could not withstand a turn under the crowbar and fell to the ground, blood splattering everywhere, full of the beauty of violent aesthetics. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Quiet Direct Calling for Insiders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Quiet Direct Calling for Insiders have arrived at the security room. The difficulty will slightly increase, as most of the infected security personnel are wearing equipment and may not perform well, and may even be killed. Think about it. A certain tick-tick-tick sound came out. That's the sound of saliva dripping. Li Yan is very familiar with this voice. In the second simulation, I heard a similar sound while I was in the security room. At that time, I seem to have been directly surrounded and beaten because of my poor marksmanship, which caught the attention of those monsters. This guy is a special infected person. Upon reflection, Li Yanjuan looked towards the ceiling of the corridor. At some point, a special experimenter, resembling a thin monkey, had climbed up, with sharp fangs still hanging with mucus. Its crimson eyes stared fixedly at Li Guofu, who was still unaware of the danger. That massive figure, as if a rare delicacy. In the next second, its limbs tightened and its muscles swelled up, as if it had been inflated, and it pounced fiercely at this critical moment. Li Guofu raised his eyebrows, seemingly sensing the impending danger. He suddenly turned back, lifted his foot and aimed at the pitch-black shadow, then kicked it with a tremendous force, causing the special experimenter to be kicked directly onto the nearby wall. "Jalotzi, are you playing with Yin?" He cursed and took the wooden stick from Ning Jing's hand over. Without saying a word, he aimed it at the special experimental body breathing on the wall and turned it into a stick. Click, the tremendous force caused the stick to crack open directly from the center, and half of the experimental subject's head was tilted. The attack was decisive and ruthless, worthy of being a black fist. After resolving this minor incident, a few people arrived at the security room. It has to be said that those who have been mercenaries for a few years have some skills in hand-to-hand combat. They don't have any moves when they start, but if they hit, they are deadly. A few zombies inside the room were quickly solved. Looking at the neatly arranged various firearms and supplies, Shen Lian, who had been silently paddling behind, let out a breath. As an intern police officer, during this process, she surprisingly did nothing to help. Even an uncle who has been fighting for a few years is not worth it. But why is the combat effectiveness displayed by this young boy who looks similar in age to himself so terrifying? Whether it's the infected person or the experimental subject, it doesn't seem to cause any waves in the other person's eyes. It's okay. Although I didn't perform mediocrely before and may not be very good at hand-to-hand combat, now that I have firearms, the situation is definitely different. At least I have received so much professional training in the police academy. After all, it is a base for conducting important research. The various weapons and props in the security room can also be described as dazzling. Rifle, 95 model pistol, fire axe, bulletproof vest, tear gas, explosion-proof shield. Li Yan picked up a pistol from the ground and also picked up a fire axe. Li Guofu looked at the exquisite firearms and pursed his lips, saying, "I can't get used to these things." Speaking, he picked up the explosion-proof shield and pry bar, and put on various protective equipment. Shen Lian took a rifle. And Tranquility picked up some things casually. There's no way. After entering the security room, she had originally hoped to finally break free from the identity of being a drag on the team. But after looking at the configurations of others, Tranquility silently accepted its own incompetence. Forget it. Being a vase is quite good. It's better than not having a vase. Shen Lian turned her head and said, "What should we do next?" Li Yan didn't speak, but continued to search for the security room, and then I took out a blueprint. This is the construction drawing of the research base. Now, the bacteria have leaked and the base gate has opened a self-destruction mode. If you want to go out from there, you are looking for death. You can lead to the basement through a pipeline. There is a safe house there. Words have not yet fallen. Click. The sound of something being broken was transmitted. Crispy. It's like glass fell to the ground. This is the glass in the laboratory. Accompanied by thoughts falling. Groups of experimental subjects emerged from inside. Li Yan frowned and was about to remind him not to make a sound, but it was in the next second tranquility has already pulled its own trigger. Li Yan. I thought this guy's performance would be stronger than in the simulation, but it seems that I overthought it. The bullet shot out fiercely, and it is unknown whether it took away the life of the zombie. But accompanied by the sound of gunfire. There are also groups of disturbed experimenters and infected individuals. The rush to come was like the old men and women waiting for a discount at the market, making people feel goosebumps all over their bodies. Let out a sigh. In this situation, is the fire axe useless or should a gun be used? The effort of pulling out a handgun. Shen Lian had already started shooting at the group of zombies in an extremely upright posture. Bullets poured out, flames flickered, and blood splattered everywhere. Her expression showed no signs of panic. My marksmanship belongs to the superior type on campus. Perhaps Shen Lian is not very good at hand-to-hand combat, but in situations like this, I can play a very significant role. But firearms also have limitations. The discharge of bullets causes the fierce firepower to instantly jam. These short seconds may not seem too long, but for zombies, they are the best opportunity to attack. In the blink of an eye, 3 infected individuals have already rushed in, charging towards Shen Lian. Bang bang bang. 3 bullets accurately hit the heads of 3 infected individuals. Shen Lian looked in the direction where the bullets were fired, but saw the handsome young man, who was focused on holding a pistol and shooting at the incoming zombies. 12 bullets were fired, and 11 zombies were knocked down. Still with a calm expression, Shen Lian felt a bit dazed. This guy, even if he's tough and experienced in hand-to-hand combat, how can his superb marksmanship be smoother and smoother than the use of cold weapons? He doesn't look very old either. He's 21 or 12 years old, about the same as himself. Why is everything else so different? Difficult to understand. At the same time, Li Guofu held a fire axe in one hand and a crowbar in the other. At this moment, he seemed to transform into a Spartan warrior, blocking another entrance and watching the swarming zombies, constantly smashing them with the crowbar. When the labor and management arranged a fight back then, there were more people fighting than this. Zombies are nothing. Although there was not much running in. But the cooperation of several people is quite good. The self-confidence that she had originally planned to regain was once again slightly defeated. Shen Lian quickly filled the bullets and frantically cleaned up the surging infected individuals. Li Guofu serves as the striker. Shen Lianqing is strange. Li Yan repaired the knife. Tranquility claps its hands and exclaims, "Bull force." Please follow up and recommend monthly tickets. Thank you very much. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. One of the God's Hand. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. One of the God's Hand. The cooperation of a few people is quite good at this time. Some people charge the current platoon to attract most of the firepower, while others output firepower and replenish knives in the back. Some even clapped and cheered as the atmosphere group. Bullets poured out from the barrel, turning black into fiery red. Infected individuals who only heard the sound fell to the ground in the constantly pouring bullets, and even a few who could still pounce would be killed by the sharp-eyed and quick-witted Li Yan's heavy chopping of the fire axe. It takes about a stick of incense. This sudden incident was resolved like this. Although the feeling of facing the zombie suddenly was very pleasant, the cost of getting through this strange situation was not small. Almost all the bullets were fired. Accompanied by the fire axe sliding in the air, it made a piercing sound. The last infected person was also beheaded by Li Yan. Looking towards the ground. The originally pristine white tiles are now filled with distorted green blood from zombies. The foul smell quickly filled the entire air. The originally calm group of 4, after experiencing this turbulence, each person breathed heavily, grateful that they could survive this disaster. Even Li Guofu, who often wanders at the boundary of life and death, couldn't help but feel lost when he saw the zombie corpses scattered all over the ground. A zombie from a research base, right? Just the infected individuals on the 3rd floor have almost wiped them out. To go to the research base at the bottom, at least you need to pass through the 2nd level research base before you can reach the entrance of the base. You have already used almost all your bullets. After cleaning up these little monsters, Li Yan turned his gaze to the tranquility that had been paddling and fishing. Have you seen those zombies locked up in the laboratory? Those are the first batch of humans to be used for pathogen experiments. They are much stronger in terms of attack power and survival rate compared to zombies infected with bacteria. However, they have a fatal flaw. They cannot be seen. But at the same time, in order to make up for their shortcomings, their hearing and smell are also very sensitive, so don't make the same noise as before. Once you disturb these guys in the current ammunition shortage situation, your life's safety is an unknown factor. Li Yan spoke up to remind. Upon hearing this, Tranquility nodded and immediately covered her mouth. As a vase. She is still a bit self-aware, not to mention adding help to the team, but at least not dragging her feet. As he spoke, he also turned his gaze to Shen Lian, who was panting heavily. This guy can only be said to be worthy of being specially trained in the police academy, with this kind of calm quality in the face of danger. No wonder he has been mentioned multiple times in simulations. At this moment, Li Guofu, who had been silent all along, spoke up. The zombies here have already been cleared, are you still standing here? The countdown is almost over. As an underground boxing champion who has worked as a bodyguard and is somewhat famous underground. He is almost 40 years old and has gone through many things in his life compared to ordinary people. However, when faced with such a situation, he looks at the ferocious faces of swarms of zombies attacking him crazily. It is inevitable that some fears have arisen in my heart. As the saying goes, the older a person gets, the more afraid they are of death. Although it is fortunate that Li Guofu can live to this day, when death truly arrives, the suffocating pressure still makes this veteran who has been licking blood for a long time feel a bit suffocating. He just wants to leave this damn place quickly now, even if this supernatural power may bring him even more benefits than the first 40 years combined. But then it came back. Rao is myself in this situation. I also felt extremely anxious, but the young man with the ID name, Super Invincible Tyrannosaurus Rex Warrior. I have chosen a name that is not in tune. The performance is exceptionally superior. The marksmanship is exquisite, and the feeling of exerting force when using weapons is also extremely sophisticated. This kind of terrifying and bloody scene, where blood splatters onto the body and the fire axe is turned on, is not enough to bear it psychologically. It is absolutely impossible to do so, but this guy is a bit too calm, as if he has experienced hundreds of times, and even hums a tune while chopping monsters. Can you still create a romantic atmosphere by killing a zombie? Listening to the underground boxing king say this, Li Yan searched for the blueprint and said, the road to the base gate is impassable. The self-destruction program has already begun. Li Guofu paused for a moment and said, how do you know? Li Yan glanced at him and said, if you don't believe it, you can go and give it a try. At that time, you may encounter being surrounded by dozens of zombies, with blast shields scratched and palms dislocated but unable to get out of trouble. Then, they will pile up a small mountain and press on you, scratching your flesh and blood with their claws, nibbling on your freshest parts with their teeth, and then emitting a strange and naughty laugh. Of course, these are all my assumptions, and it's also possible that if you're lucky, you'll just rush out. He shrugged his shoulders and gestured for the other party to be at their own discretion. Li Guofu. This kid, how despicable is it? He hesitated for a long time before finally exhaling and staying in the security room. On the other side, Li Yan has found the blueprint of the research base in the security room. He spread it out and placed it on the ground. This is the blueprint for the research base. There is also a basement below the first floor, where there is a specially built safe house to prevent unexpected situations, with sufficient resources inside. The crimson countdown flickered above the screen, the numbers getting smaller and smaller, leaving them only 2 hours of time left. Then let's follow this route. Time is running out, I just want to leave this damn place quickly. Li Guofu spoke up. Although the other party's state may be a bit out of tune, it is undoubtedly the best in terms of performance and strength. Li Yan nodded and handed the basic map paper to Shen Lian next to him. Since everything has been planned, there's no need to delay anymore. You can enter through the windproof duct first. Shen Lian paused for a moment and said, "And you?" Li Yan's gaze shifted for a moment. Previously, in the laboratory, there was a little girl who was a special experimental subject. I came to cushion her. After speaking, a few people didn't hesitate and quickly entered the ventilation duct. Staring at the corpses scattered on the ground, a very mysterious palpitations were transmitted from the depths of the heart. It's a pity to leave the zombie that was finally killed with so much effort here for nothing. When Li Yan first went to the 4th and 5th floors, although he died, he gained a quite formidable talent. Absorb. It is possible to extract a portion of the pathogens from the zombie's body and evolve to become stronger. While acquiring this skill, he also gained some information. The talent of emulators can be changed according to the unique characteristics of the host itself. Before obtaining this talent, Li Yan's previous simulation rewards belonged to humans, whether they were firearms experts or breath-holding experts, they did not deviate from the scope of human physical limits. But absorption is different, it is completely a talent that is matched with antibodies and serum in the body, not human. Take a deep breath. Li Yan crouched down, his fingertips touching the sticky blood on the ground. A strange connection began to be established, accompanied by a tingling sensation. Something was flowing into his body through the contact of his skin. Extracting pathogens. The pathogen has been absorbed. Your middle finger has undergone a mutation. Obtaining active skills. One of the God's fingers, end of this chapter. Chapter 9. Outsiders. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9 Outsiders, skill name. One of the God's fingers consumed 10% of the overall mental energy and 10% of the physical strength. Description. When you use this skill, your middle finger will become a carrier of bacteria and spread robes towards the air. People or objects infected with bacteria will have their body skills rapidly decline and become carriers of bacteria. Note: this skill is invalid for zombies. Looking at the sudden emergence of information prompts. Li Yan was stunned for a moment. Skills. Sink down and feel. He could clearly feel that there was some extremely subtle substance in his body that could be controlled, which should be the absorbed pathogens. Is this what is called evolution? Li Yan was stunned for a moment, his gaze fixed on the description of the skill. After carefully reading and understanding it, he couldn't help but nod. Based on the above description, this skill is quite good. Although it is useless for zombies, apart from this accident, it is basically impossible for the escape dungeon to be a zombie again in the future. In case of encountering some monster who is very capable of fighting, with a vertical middle finger, the opponent will be parasitized by bacteria and greatly weakened. Apply a weak buff to the middle finger. Put away his raised middle finger. Although he had already absorbed the zombie corpses on the ground, Li Yan did not rush into the ventilation duct. Absorbing corpses is one thing. But it's not a serious matter. There is one very important thing why Li Yan stayed in this place. That's the items on the 4 or 5 floors of the research base. Although if he were to go to the safe house with his teammates now, there would be no accidents and he could successfully pass this level. According to the items displayed in the simulator, their allure is really too strong. Mysterious church coat of arms, some pathogens, research materials. These are the truly valuable items in this instance, while the others are not worth mentioning. Although the difficulty has increased significantly, the value brought by those items is not a loss. After looking at the time, it has only been about an hour now, and the remaining time should be enough to go to the 4th or 5th floor to pick up those things. With such thoughts in mind, Li Yan walked out of the safe house carrying a fire axe. In the staircase from the 3rd floor to the 4th floor, there are still some zombies that have not been completely killed. Looking at the twisted appearance of these guys, Li Yan didn't even frown. The emaciated figure shuttled through the group of zombies, with each axe falling capable of carrying large splashes of blood. It makes adrenaline rush. The roar of the zombies sounded so terrifying, but it also revealed a strong sense of helplessness. I thought it would take me a very long time to adapt to this rhythm, but I didn't expect to adapt so quickly. Another axe fell. In a moment, the infected individuals in the entire corridor had already been cleaned up. Arrive at the staircase. Accompanied by a sharp friction sound, a special experimental subject with extremely long nails suddenly emerged from the dark corner. The attacks of special infected individuals have been carried out more than 10 times in the simulation, and Li Yan can avoid them even with his eyes closed. On stage for 1 minute. 10 years of hard work in the audience. This sentence was best interpreted by the simulator. Although on the surface it may seem easy to handle the battle with just one blow and one shot, in reality, in order to reach this level, the number of deaths of Li Yan is also quite alarming. With a flash on his side, he lifted his fire axe and struck heavily from top to bottom, killing the opponent before absorbing the pathogens. Arrive at the 4th floor of the research base. As the 1st floor where bacteria spread, even infected individuals here have several times stronger qualities than ordinary people over such a long period of time. Moreover, there are many special experimenters on this floor. Even though his strength has undergone a qualitative transformation now, he often experiences setbacks during the simulation process. Carefully kill all infected individuals in the surrounding area. Li Yan, with his incredible ability to hold his breath, sneaked back and forth under the eyelids of the special experimenters. In this silent atmosphere, he felt as if he had transformed into the protagonist of the Assassin's Creed, and the fire axe in his hand had also turned into a short dagger, each time it fell representing the disappearance of a life. Time flows by, accompanied by a powerful and heavy axe falling, and several weak chicken zombies infected in the laboratory also follow suit to the end. A wave of scraping. The items that were originally seen in the simulator finally popped up again at this moment. Safe deposit box, alarm clock, incomplete genetic drugs. Previously, Dick, who was imprisoned in the laboratory, had taken a defective genetic drug and then transformed into that terrifying appearance. I wonder if he can further improve it. If possible, the value of this bottle of potion in hand is quite frightening. Abandon the chaotic thoughts in your mind. He took the fire axe in his hand and slashed the ventilation duct above the laboratory head with a fierce blow. With skillful force, he pried open the iron sheet and then climbed in, walking step by step towards the 5th floor of the research base. The narrow space was pitch black. The surroundings were extremely quiet, so quiet that one could even hear their own heavy breathing. No, it's not right. This panting is not my own. With this terrifying thought emerging from his mind, Li Yan's heart palpitated unimaginably, and he immediately placed the fire axe on his chest. Boom! Accompanied by a loud noise. The iron sheet, which was originally extremely flat, seemed to have been subjected to some extremely strong impact and was directly dented. My throat is sweet. Under the strong impact, my whole body arched up, and the handle of the fire axe in my hand was directly shattered, even with some dents on the axe head. The body broke through the weak iron sheet, fell heavily on the wall, and blood overflowed from the corners of the mouth. The vibrating internal organs caused extremely strong discomfort, but soon, the non-human healing force brought by the serum quickly adjusted the body. In the line of sight, a huge green palm protruded, like crushing a paper toy, and directly squeezed and pulled off the ventilation duct. This giant zombie, several people tall, was exactly Dick, who was locked up in the laboratory. However, at this moment, its angry and irritable face, which was originally in the simulation, became extremely calm on Dick's shoulder. The eccentric scientist stared at Li Yan, who was panting in the corner with a punch, with a smile on his face and said, "Hello, outsider. Please follow up, the worldview is constantly laying the groundwork and will become more and more exciting in the future." End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Entering a Furious State. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Entering a Furious State. Weird scientist, real name Humphrey. According to data, this guy is a twisted researcher who has been studying strange things. He has a deformed brain and extremely high intelligence. By chance, he came into contact with the famous billionaire Dick and presented his research results to the other party. Dick greatly admires this researcher with a deformed head, who funded the establishment of a research laboratory dedicated to researching so-called anti-cancer drugs. In fact, it is a zombie virus that can bring the entire world to an end. Recalling the information I learned in the simulation in my mind, Li Yan slowly stood up from the sunken wall and wiped away the blood from the corners of his mouth. In the line of sight, the wealthy man, like Hulk the Hulk, who was ravaged by genetic potions, was at this moment as gentle as a tamed wild horse. Humphrey sat on his shoulder, exuding a special aura all around him. "Hello, outsider," a slightly trembling voice came out, as if seeing some extremely rare experimental specimen, with a strange excitement in its voice. How did it become like this? Looking at the current sudden change, Li Yan frowned. In the simulation, there has never been a situation like this before. The eyes of both sides are in opposition. The experimental subjects on the 5th floor of the research base were also attracted by the huge movement and flocked in. Surprisingly, this time, they suppressed their bloodthirsty nature when they clearly sensed the bloody smell in the air, and instead stayed next to the giant zombies, seemingly intimidated by some extremely powerful sense of oppression. Humphrey gazed at Li Yan with interest and said, "Lu Yuan, one of the research members of the 3rd-level laboratory, is 34 years old. He joined this study in March 2 years ago, and the bacterial infection index in his body is quite high. In theory, when I caused this disaster, you should have turned into a walking corpse like other experimenters. But the development of the matter exceeded my expectations. Not only did you not become a zombie, but you even turned around and slaughtered my dear people. This is not Lu Yuan, whom I am familiar with. Who the hell are you?" Listen to this slightly excited inquiry. Li Yan's expression remained unchanged. He stared at the group of zombies standing next to the giant zombies, and then looked at Humphrey's face, which had become extremely twisted due to excitement. These replica NPCs are far smarter than he imagined. No wonder you can come up with such a perverted thing, but your brain is quite useful. But since everyone has asked so, there is no need for Li Yan to hide it. He looked at his name ID and said straightforwardly, "Super Invincible Tyrannosaurus Rex Warrior. Humphrey. Giant Zombie." After hearing the name of this person being fooled by fools, the smile on Humphrey's cheeks became even brighter. "Outsiders, I look forward to your performance." Accompanied by the landing of words, something seemed to have been opened up, and the group of zombies who were originally motionless in place became manic as if they had been drugged. Their eyes turned crimson like special experimental subjects, and they charged towards the target with sharp, tearing cries from their mouths. On the 3rd floor, a similar situation occurred where a group of zombies rushed forward. However, last time there were 3 people to support them, and this time only Li Yan was left. While there is still some time left, he picked up the broken half of the fire axe on the ground, tore off his sleeve, and tightly wrapped it around his palm. The battle has officially begun. Shoo! The rubber shoes made a violent friction sound on the ground. The fire axe tightly wrapped in its hand suddenly turned upwards, and the back of the axe hit the jaw of the zombie at the forefront, sinking directly into it. The tremendous force lifted it up a few meters away. The next second, the blade suddenly turned downwards. Although the edge of the axe was almost worn out, its heavy weight, no matter how much it was worn out, could still cause huge damage with the help of strength. This is also the reason why Li Yan chose the fire axe. With a slash, green mucus splattered out, instantly killing 2 zombies. However, Li Yan's movements did not stop at all. With his ability to sense danger, he lowered himself to avoid the attack, stabilized, and then kicked a zombie forward with his right foot. Taking advantage of this opportunity, he slammed his left elbow towards his back and swung an axe to make up for the heavy blow. The talent of the fire axe's specialization has reached its limit at this time. It can chop zombies into pieces when sharp, and can directly turn the opponent to death when dull. The smooth operation, coupled with the splashing of meat foam and blood, fully showcases the aesthetic of violence, making adrenaline rush. On the other side, Humphrey was sitting on the shoulder of the giant zombie at this moment, and the mysterious emblem in the left pocket of his white coat emitted a faint light, appearing extremely eerie. The anti-gravity, attacking power, and self-healing power of immune bacteria do not seem to be possessed by humans. Interesting. As an experimental subject, it's possible to cultivate zombies that are even stronger than this silly guy. Watching myself sit down with a massive zombie. Humphrey stared at Li Yan, who was constantly waving his fire axe among the zombies, and his eyes gradually became fiery. Such a solid body, it can withstand the waste of various experiments, but it's a bit difficult to encounter them again. My chest was heaving, and beads of sweat as big as beans flowed down the edge of my forehead, seeping into the wound, bringing a piercing sensation to my nerves. Another axe fell. There are already about 10 corpses piled up on the ground. The blood on his body is also unclear whether it is his own or that of a zombie. Even my gaze appeared a bit dazed. Unexpectedly, after so many simulations, some unexpected situations have emerged. He was panting heavily. The zombie in front of me has become increasingly blurry, like a highly myopic person taking off their glasses. The zombie in front of me has become nothing but a phantom, and I can only rely on my ability to perceive danger to constantly dodge and attack. But apart from the zombies in front of us, there is still a real big boss standing over there. The situation is not optimistic. The line of sight became increasingly blurred. Looking at the swarming zombies, Li Yan looked at the potions placed in his inventory, his heart racing. It's all like this. If you don't spell it a bit, it's just gone. After this thought, Li Yan felt his increasingly weak body. Without hesitation, he directly injected the incomplete gene potion into his chest. Liquid injection. The surging force, accompanied by manic desire, instantly knocked out one's rationality. The originally damaged wound was repaired in an instant, and the muscles began to swell, seemingly uncontrollably surging. But at this moment, the antibody serum hidden in the blood suddenly became cooling down the manic thoughts that were planning to break the human brain, and the vision gradually became clear from hazy. You use the incomplete gene potion for yourself. Your brain is about to be occupied. The antibody serum in your body has produced an effect. You have entered a frenzy state. End of this chapter.